Null oil is class. I think everyone out there, everyone's sipping their little null oil at home.
Yeah.
It's just.
Cheers.
Yeah.
We mate Aaron would be like, "Oh, I've got a bit of a headache." I'm like, "Shut up, we haven't finished painting yet."
Yeah, we've still got loads more to paint. Yeah. It's crazy how people just like find these little techniques and they're like, they're just like staring off in the distance and they're like, There's a pillow there. Yeah. I could use that pillow to paint. Big pillow painting. Yeah. We're your hosts, Jack
and Dan.
Following on from our last episode, we really want to dive into more techniques that maybe we use. Alongside that, maybe make this more of a helpful kind of guide to help them out.
Yeah, so the joy of painting was the first part, which is kind of how we feel about painting. This episode, we want to talk a bit more about some of the techniques and tools and rate our chances or prospects of Golden Demon in the future.
Yes, very low. But
might be a long way off.
Yeah, still some time to go. But before we get into all that, Dan, we have a lovely giveaway that we've got.
Yes, if you haven't entered our giveaway, you need to get on it because it expires at the end of April. That's when the draw is going to be. So hurry up. It's for a £100 Games Workshop voucher. But don't worry, if you're not in the UK, we will give you the equivalent in your currency. All you have to do to enter is go onto our Instagram, and the details are all there in the pin post. So get on it, and please share it as well with as many Warhammer fans as you know.
Share and subscribe to the channel.
Definitely subscribe, please.
Help us out. But yes,
first do a lot of pointing today. I don't know.
Do a lot of pointing.
Angry pointing today.
Accusational, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
you. The viewer.
Yeah, I need to stop that.
I absolutely love it though. Perfect. Well, the first thing that we want to get into is one of the things that we kind of brought up maybe last time very briefly, but what is one of the things that you wish you knew before you started?
Oh my goodness, yes, that's a great question. Okay, well, I think the first one is colour wheel.
Colour wheel.
Yeah. Yes. So for those, I'm sure most of you know what colour wheel is, but I didn't. So
I didn't either, to be fair, for a very long time.
So this is basically as it is described, it's like a circle or a wheel of colours, but it very simply is a visual guide that shows you which colours go together well, and also which colours contrast with each other well or clash. So it makes a big difference, I think. I didn't really understand a lot about colour theory, so this is a very basic way to do it.
I was really confused about kind of what colours go with what kind of thing. And I think the good thing about online colour wheels is that there's like different settings that you can choose it from, where it's like if you want like the opposite of a colour, it obviously tells you what the opposite is. If you're looking for like a trifecta one, it's literally like this one, a what
now?
Trifecta, I think is what it's called.
Right, yeah, no, it is a trifecta. I've just I didn't realise that existed.
Yes, yeah, it's really good. I guess it's like a good way if you want to like maybe pick 3 colours for your army. It's like, all right, let's maybe choose like the 3 almost not opposites, but almost like 3 trifecta ones.
So without going off on a massive tangent here, but this is what you were talking about off camera with your knights that you painted at the moment.
Yes.
So that's how you identified the 3 colours that you wanted to use, is it?
It wasn't. Because I know about this, but
right.
I don't want to use it. I don't want to apply
it. Works well.
It does work really well.
You're just a natural.
What I was talking about was when it comes to painting your army, it's good to have like 3, not so much main colours, but 3 colours that are the dominant kind of colours, because you don't want to make your models too messy when it comes to painting. So I pick like an undercoat of purple, which is going to be the main dominant colour. I've then got silver, which is kind of the backup colour, kind of filling in most of the areas and crevices. And then the other part of that is then the gold, which is like just adding a little bit of detail. So it makes the model less messy, it makes it look clean, and you can still add a little bit of detail, but they're the 3 main bits.
It's clean, the colours complement each other, and it's not too busy, as you said.
Exactly.
I've had, we were talking about this before as well, like I've made that mistake with some Lich Guard that I painted. Like I thought I had a great colour scheme in my head. When I put it down, there's just too many colours and it just ends up looking a bit gaudy.
It does.
It's just a bit too much.
It can. Now, the reason why I didn't use the colour wheel for is because I actually used the Citadel colour app instead.
Yes.
So that is something that I only discovered about maybe about a month and a half ago now.
Right, wow.
I went into the Games Workshop store, and I was like, well, look, I'm painting these. I got this idea, and I'm not too sure how to like. I was thinking about doing purple, and I wasn't too sure how to highlight purple or how to make them like stand out and look good.
Yeah.
And if you go on the app and just search the word the color purple, it's got loads of different styles of purple highlights that you can do, and obviously the base coat, and it tells you exactly what paints you need, and it's quite nice because it tells you. Obviously, because there's 2 standards, isn't there? There's the tabletop ready and like there's the tournament ready. So the app also splits them out to see which ones you need for being tabletop ready, but also just tournament ready.
Right. So one's like your standard and one's like a premium, or if you like, or whatever, like a significant step up.
Exactly.
And am I right in thinking that weirdly for Games Workshop, this isn't monetized? Like it's free.
It's free. Yeah, like surprisingly not.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's so they sell more.
Again, don't give them ideas. All right, I know Games Workshop's listening, so don't give them ideas. But yeah, it's a free app. You can download it now, and it's just really good. It's really easy. I find it really useful because again, I do struggle to pick colors or realize what ones do good highlights on certain colors.
Definitely,
so it's really worth checking out.
Thank you. I'm going to do that as well.
It's really nice. What about you? Anything else?
A big one was that new paints and brushes don't necessarily make you a better painter, particularly when you're at a lower level, as I am. So I went through a phase like, if I just buy this paint, then that model will look better. Sometimes you do need that color to make the model look better, but it's no substitute for just putting the reps in, really, is it?
I think that's it as well. I think particularly the brushes where people think like, oh, like I need the best, like, or like it might be like a gatekeeping to the hobby where it's like, I need to build and paint all these models, but like, I don't want to start them because like I need like expensive brushes, I need expensive paints.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the paints can be expensive, but the brushes side of things, you don't really need expensive brushes. And
we're going to come on to that in the techniques a bit as well. But there are some techniques that have completely changed how I look at painting. In term and the cost of the brushes is remarkably low. But I mean, having said that, you've got a point here that a good brush can make the world of difference, can't it?
Yes, it can. So although I say, look, you don't need expensive brushes, because you don't, because there's two ways I go about it. One, you have one really bad brush that's like a couple of quid that you cycle out regularly. So as soon as it starts breaking or splitting, get rid of it, buy another cheap one. That's kind of what you want.
My cheap ones, I don't know if it's my painting technique or whatever, but they all hook. So the tips will hook, and that's when they need to,
replace basically. Yeah. So look, buy cheap ones. Just make sure you replace them regularly. Or if you get quite an expensive one, then you shouldn't need to replace it regularly. But you will see a difference in how long it lasts, which makes you think you're a better painter. But really, just it'll last longer.
Yeah, and there's definitely a price versus value thing, isn't there? Like anything else, like it's the old from the Discworld novels, the old Captain Vimes theory of boots. Like if you buy cheap boots, they'll wear out in 6 months. Yeah. If you buy expensive boots, they'll last you 10 years. So
100%.
You end up saving money, I suppose.
You do. I think one more for me is null oil is class. I think everyone's sipping their little null oil at home.
Yeah.
It's just
cheers.
Yeah. It's honestly null oil. I mean, everyone out there who's probably watching the podcast knows what it is, but it's a contrast paint which is just unreal. It's just, it gets in all the crevices. I think it works really well for me, and we probably like it a lot more because we obviously Necrons fans, so we have a lot of Necrons, which is obviously metal, and slapping some null oil on some metal look models, it just makes them look incredible.
It puts a lot of work in for little. It's one of those lots of return for little effort, isn't it?
Yep.
I think it's probably the
best way to say. One of the biggest painted memes that's out there, really, isn't it? Just slap a bit of null oil on that and it'll look good.
Yes, but it's true. It is true to a certain degree. There's Agrax shade in there as well, but it's for metals. Null oil is the dom.
Like recesses and stuff like that. Really good.
It works really good.
Yeah. Anything more that you wish you knew before we started?
Just that there's more to life than the Citadel. So Citadel paint pots are the main. Everyone starts them because they're in the shop, and you kind of you get guided towards them for obvious reasons. But
of course, makes sense.
They're flip top, which doesn't make them the easiest paints to use, and also makes them a lot easier to spill if you're clumsy like me.
I mean, there's nothing worse spilling your null oil.
Null oil is the worst one. It will cover an awful lot of ground very quickly. Null oil.
Yes, you need to act fast. That'll stain. You need to get it out.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not good.
So there are other brands out there. Some of them are simply better paints in some cases, although I think the Citadel range is not bad at the moment. It's pretty good. In some cases it's really good, but there's also you can also get the equivalents for a lot less money in some cases.
That's true. Yeah, that's very nice. I mean, talking about what kind of paints are out there, what are out there, Dan?
So beyond Citadel, two of the ones that I've looked at is Two Thin Coats. Haven't tried those yet, but that's Duncan's.
Yes, Duncan Rhodes.
Yes.
I am a big fan of that one, to be fair. They are quite nice. I used to use them for my gold trim on my Nilek Dynasty. I got a few of our white ones, which are really nice to apply as well. Those ones, I do recommend those ones.
I haven't seen anybody say a bad word about them yet.
Nope. I mean, it's Duncan, right?
Yeah.
If you say anything bad about Duncan, the entire community go against you.
Yeah, he's like the Pope of painting, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
You can't, and I think Duncan, being Duncan, for those if you are very new to the hobby and don't know who Duncan Rhodes is, he was Mr. Citadel painting. So he did loads and loads of YouTube videos on how to paint for Games Workshop, and then left and set up doing his own channel, very successful channel,
Yeah.
and now he's got his own paint range as well. But you wouldn't put his name to something that wasn't at least as good as Citadel, if not better.
Absolutely not. No,
And,
absolutely not.
That's definitely one I'd like to look at. Army Painter, I've
I've heard of those.
Yeah, I've used some of those. They would fall into those more less expensive than Citadel, but do just the same job in a lot of cases. And they also have a speed paint range, which is really good. But we'll come on to that in a minute.
I like that idea. Next one is Vallejo.
Yes, I'm glad you pronounced that, not me.
Yeah, I was half tempted to leave it, but yes, this one is more of like an airbrush kind of style, isn't it? Kind of paint.
Yeah, they have a good range of standard paints, and I've just been invested in a few of their like sort of. They do a lot of sort of World War II-esque colours or military colours for bolt action and games like that.
Yes.
So I'm invested in some nice khakis and browns from them, which are good paints.
Nice.
But the air range is definitely where it's at. I think very good paints.
I mean, I've got my one right here, but yes, it works really well. Like you barely need to thin it down whenever you use this kind of one, which is really good. And the other ones I really struggle with. But we'll get into later on what I struggle with. But that one's really nice range.
There's two others which I don't have a massive experience about, but AK and Pro Acryl.
No,
but
I've not used them.
They are names that come up time and again from very experienced painters who are, I rate people that I know, like Daryl from the Betrayed by Dice podcast. He's a very good painter, and he very much sings praises.
Very nice.
So
very nice.
And there is. It's also a meme in painted circles, but white is an incredibly hard colour to get.
It certainly is.
And Pro Acryl white's meant to be the nuts. Yeah, it's meant to be.
A little tip that I heard is that whenever you go and try and paint white, the trick is not to paint white.
Yeah.
Into like just start using like grey colours, and then it eventually just turns white. And
Yeah,
I don't understand it personally, but yeah, I've heard it's good. Heard it's hard as well.
So what about we've touched slightly on that, but which ones have you tried? Which ones do you recommend, and which ones would you like to try?
Yes, so for me, I've tried the Citadel range, of course. I think everyone's typically tried it. The two thin coats, I've tried that one as well because I jumped on when he done his first Kickstarter.
Nice.
When he released that, so jumped on there and got some gold, got some blues, which I really enjoy.
Yeah.
After that, Vallejo. So I do try use my airbrush when I can.
Yeah.
Getting better at it. I showed you the model downstairs.
Yes.
Getting there with it, but it's still taking a bit of time. I think I really struggle to mix the non-Vallejo paint range. So like Citadel, you can use Citadel in the airbrush, but you got to thin it down.
Yeah.
And I'm really struggling to find the right balance of
finding the right consistency is really difficult. I've found.
Yeah. And I seem to have found it, but then when I do find it, it's like gotta go for like whenever you're mixing paints, when you use an airbrush, you gotta go for like a sort of milky texture.
Yeah, it's meant to be like semi-skim milk. I think is the rule, isn't it?
So I do get there, but then for some reason my airbrush fails in another part where like the needle isn't too far forward or too far back, and then maybe the airbrush is not there, and it's a pain, but I will get there, and so will everyone else if they tried. But they're the ones I've tried. I mean, contrast paints as well. I've not tried any contrast paints outside of the Citadel
contrasts, would you recommend them?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Like they are just unreal. Probably my biggest recommendation I've got. Citadel contrast paints are just, I mean, there could be other ones out there, but they just work for me and exactly what I need them to do.
Yeah, I'll talk when it's my turn. I'll talk a little bit more. It's my turn. Yes. You won the roll off, so you go first. Yeah.
We should get a little toy to pass through. Yeah. I have the toy. I'm speaking down. but yes, since it's my turn. But no, yes, Citadel contrast paints again. Most of I always paint, I guess, what I refer to as hard body models. They're all robots, mechanical stuff. So I'm painting my knights at the minute, so I'm using more contrast paints, which is just working wonders because there's so much little details on the knights that you need to get into. Just whacking in some contrast paints to get into those details, highlight those areas.
Because they do sit well in the shades, in the recesses, don't they?
So well. Yes.
For me, for painting the likes of Jukari, the contrast paints work brilliantly. They do a lot of, again, it's talking about, improving how your models can look with the minimum effort, which is where I'm at. They've been fantastic. It's been a game changer.
Looking at this list, you look like you've tried them all, right?
I've tried a few. Yeah, I mean, I've obviously started with Citadel. I've tried some. I've got some Vallejo because there was. I don't know if it's still there, but there was like a model train type of shop in town, and they used to stock Vallejo, so I've got some of those.
Nice.
Citadel Contrast is my new favourite. I also tried Army Paint to do their own range of speed paints, and they also launched a range of metallic speed paints.
Ooh, right.
So you were talking, like, it's one of the things you can't get in normal speed paints or Citadel Contrast. They don't do the metallics.
Nah.
So I was like, if these work, could this speed up painting Necrons.
Yeah.
So I tried those as well. I wouldn't recommend them. Some of them are lush. There's some really nice kind of golden brass colours in there, but they just don't quite sit as well as nicely as the other contrast paints, and they don't like going over white. So if you're thinking about the slap chop method, where you would have kind of white edge highlights to pre-shade, it doesn't
add on top of that. No.
Might have been the way I was using it, but just didn't seem to like it.
I think I do that so that you basically spray it black, dry brush white on top kind of thing, and then you add the colours on top. So if the colours don't add on top, then
it doesn't work properly. You're kind of pulling away too much. So I would recommend contrast paints. I love them. And Vallejo as a cost-effective alternative to the standard Citadels are really good. So yeah,
I like it.
I would like to try the Army Painter Speed paints, because they recently launched like version 2.0 of those, like back end of last year, I think it was, before Christmas. So I do like Army Painter paints, and I'd like to see whether they're better than the Citadel ones, and they come in the dropper bottles, the same as Vallejo. So
I do prefer that nowadays, where it's just like, I feel like with my Citadel paint, it's just drying out far too fast.
It's drying out. It's a spillage risk, because if you knock over, if you've got a dropper bottle and you put the lid on properly, it ain't going anywhere when you knock it over, which is
it's beautiful.
It's where you want to be.
One of the things I was going to mention as well, I think the big difference between Citadel paint range and maybe Too Thin Coats is maybe a good example is the naming convention.
Oh yes, yes.
My goodness, some of the naming conventions that we have on the Citadel paint range, their paint range, it's quite just odd colours, really, really odd colours. I mean,
they went through this IP panic a good few years ago, and that's one of the reasons why Age of Sigmar exists, because all of the fantasy IP that they couldn't trademark, because you can't trademark orcs, but you can trademark Aurochs. You know, that kind of stuff. So they've done the same they applied the same mentality to the paints. So they've given them these ridiculous. I mean, in some cases the names are like lore relevant to the world, aren't they?
Abaddon Black.
But, Abaddon Black.
I get that.
You know, it's basically a charcoal black, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas I do prefer like Army Painter or some of the Vallejo ones are just like it's this color. It's charcoal black.
It's dark blue.
Yeah.
It's
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, thanks for making, because like coming into the hobby and you're seeing like, Abaddon Black, it's like, who's Abaddon? I just want a black color. Is this the one I want? So knowing like which ones are the best colors, I think just easy naming conventions, easy to have.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
But I guess moving on from the range themselves, what about different painting techniques? Have you tried many?
I've tried a few. I mean, the way you get kind of introduced to the hobby, and you can go for free painting lessons in the stores.
Yes.
Don't do what I did and take a non-GW brush, or they will lthe guy literally almost dived across the shop no, don't try and stop me putting it in the paint pot.
Just
you can't use that here.
He's like, get that out of here. I don't want to hear it. Don't want to see it.
I mean, it's nice that they do. It's good that they offer free classes, but they will teach you the conventional Too Thin Coats method, and it's very time consuming. You've got to put the Too Thin Coats on, you've got to put some shading on, then you've got to put another coat on, then you've got to edge highlights, and then sometimes you've got to dry brush. It's a bit much. It depends on what you want out of the hobby, doesn't it?
True.
If you are trying to go from grey to good and tabletop ready in as short a time as possible, that's not the way to do it. If you're just interested in learning painting for the joy of learning painting, then it's fine.
Yeah.
But it wasn't for me. I found it very hard work. It was just and it didn't feel like fun when I was painting.
Like I mean, I've got pretty good painting my Necrons now, so I kind of know what I need to do. But when I was in the shop, they were like, "Well, you need this, then you need like a lead belcher, now you need a Necron compound." I was like, "Settle down." I was like, "I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this." Then that's I'm not going to do anything extra. I don't need anything extra. But obviously they can. Of course, they're going to help out. But there's some things to do in a very long-winded way. But I mean, talking about the different kind of like ways that they were getting you to try and do it, obviously there's the brushes wise, you mentioned very briefly there's the shading element, there's the edge highlighting element, and the dry brushing element. Do you want to give a brief overview maybe what these are, just for anyone who doesn't really know?
No, you can go for it if you want to.
So I guess some of the ones that I hate doing the most, edge highlighting. I just really struggle with it because edge highlighting, so basically you've got your model pretty much tabletop ready. It's all done. Now you want to add a bit of fancy stuff to it. So edge highlighting is when you've got like a little armor panel on the side of you, and you get your little brush, and you might do like a little bit of silver, and you basically get rid of quite a lot of paint off the brush, and you use the edge of your brush to basically go along the model edge. Which so it's like edge on edge, and it just takes a lot of time basically.
It takes time, and it's you need a very steady hand, which I haven't got.
So
I would. I mean, the reason is if you have an armor panel on a model, it will look slightly blocky if the edges aren't. What you're trying to do is exaggerate how the natural light catches the edges, aren't you? To make it look less blocky.
Exactly.
But I think you can. It's not as good, but I think you can achieve a similar effect just from dry brushing, which is a lot easier technique to learn.
Exactly right. Yes, moving on to the dry brushing. Dry brushing is so much more easier. It's a lot better when it comes to big flat panels. There, it's a lot easier to dry brush on than edge highlight. But yeah, it's just so much easier. So much less room for mistake as well, because when you dry brush, you get rid of a lot more paint off the brush, and you're just literally just nice. It's actually more relaxing, really. You're not stressing. You're not like procking your elbows up on all different areas. You're literally just like blah, 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 blah. And then if it messes up, well, it just looks nice because it actually looks like a little bit of weathering has been done to the bit that you're actually trying to dry brush. It looks a bit more realistic.
I hadn't thought about it like that. That's a really good point.
The last one is just shading. So really just kind of, again, this isn't too bad to really do. It's literally just like null oil, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whack it in the recesses.
Yeah. If it's metallic null oil, or if you want a really grimy look on your model, null oil. If it's you want there are loads of shades that get GWX, but Agrax Earthshade is the other standard one, if you like.
Yes.
And that one is more of a kind of mid to dark brown.
Yes.
So rather than getting the real darkness of the null oil, you're getting it's a bit softer, isn't it?
Exactly. When it comes to shading as well, you can also shade a lot of other shading I've done apart from my Necrons is the capes that you've got. So capes inside, you do need to use a few different shading techniques on that, where you build up the shading to make the cape look more, I guess, give it more depth, basically. Yeah. So yeah, there's lots of different techniques. Go watch a YouTube video on that one, because that's, depending on what model you're painting, you'll need to watch exactly what you do in the right order as well. Otherwise, you might mess it up.
Yeah.
But apart from brushes side of things, there's also what's this one? The overbrush. That's heavy. So brush?
Overbrush or heavy dry brush is the one that changed my life. We'll talk about this again a little bit later on, but it's basically it's the stage where it's almost the stage where you take some paint off the brush when you're dry brushing,
right?
But it's before you get to the paint. When you're testing it on your hand, like you're dry brushing, so you wiped all the paint off and test it on your hand. There's very little there. Sometimes you test it and you'll get like a streak effect, and it's like that. So you're using it to, instead of just catching the edges, there should be enough paint on the brush to catch the panel, but not the recesses still. So if you've sprayed your model a dark colour, like let's say we're painting Necrons, yeah?
Sure.
So we sprayed it black, we're overbrushing with lead belcher, and then it still leaves the shadows in the recesses. But it covers, it's a very quick way of covering the rest of the model.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
I like that. Just kind of,
and it also then kind of, you can shade still, but it kind of negates the need for the shading as much because the recesses are still dark.
Oh, okay. I like that. I've never tried that one method before.
It's
literally just a big dry brush for that one, is it? Or
yes. Yeah.
I like it.
And it's dependent obviously on what you're trying to paint, but it's a very, very quick method for robots, Necrons, anything like that. But you can use it on if you've got large areas of the same color on any model, then you can do that.
I think a Space Marine would do the job as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really
nice
good,
little crevices as well.
Yeah,
I like it. Slap chop, is that where we briefly mentioned before?
Yes. So slap chop is this has existed for a long time, but then it became a thing. I think it was last year, wasn't it? Where there's all of a sudden loads of videos about slap chop, and everyone was talking about it. Slap chop. But it's fundamentally it works on a rule of pre-shading. So you'll usually start with it can be typically two or three shades. I use 3. So the standard the way of doing it would be to spray a model black or a very dark color, overbrush as we just described there, or spray from above like zenithal spray with a mid-tone like a grey.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then dry brush with the edges with a white.
Oh, okay, right.
And then when you put your contrast paint on, you're automatically getting darken the recesses, a nice color on the panels, and that, and then your edges are already highlighted for you.
I've never tried that before.
It's been big for me painting Drukhari. It's just much quicker.
Yeah. No, that's pretty good.
Anything like if you're painting, for example, Guard, I imagine it would be a really good way of painting.
I do have a lot of Guard.
Who doesn't?
Does that work for like big models as well? We got like the tanks and such, or not?
I don't know is a short answer because I've never tried it, but I would assume so. I think the only challenge I've found with the contrast paints is on things with big flat surfaces.
Right.
So if even on marines, for example, like a marine shoulder pad, you've got to be very careful with the contrast paint, otherwise you can get streaks on it.
Right.
So you know, you've got to apply. It takes a little bit of practice to learn how to apply it.
You gotta like do a lot of cleanup because I've noticed when I do like big flat panels, like you put like the null oil on or whatever the contrast paints, and then like you'll look and you'll be like, oh, this looks great. You'll look away and you'll look back and there's like it's splodged and you're like, and you try and get it off, and it's got this little ring. You're like,
yes,
kind of thing. So you do have to be careful. On that one.
Exactly.
I like it.
But it's definitely it's definitely worth trying Slap Chop.
Never tried it. So stippling as well. I don't think I've tried this one either.
Yes, as far as I'm, if I understand this correctly, because I haven't tried it but want to. This is it's like dry brushing, but with the point of the brush. So you get most of the paint off.
Oh, what?
And then you're hitting the brush edges instead of the brush on dry brushing, the brush edges are flicking an edge.
Right.
On stippling, you're using the point, almost the point of the brush, if you like, even though dry brushing has a point, to stab onto these panels.
Oh, okay.
What it allows you to do is gain color gradients. So without an airbrush, basically.
Right.
So you can you can almost. You can almost highlight a panel like a shoulder pad or whatever without having to airbrush it.
Right.
Yeah.
See, I was going to go for that effect when I was doing my knights, but I couldn't get it with a brush, so I did have to whack on my airbrush.
Yeah.
So I might try that with my bigger one.
I'll send you some videos, actually. Yeah. We'll talk about this in a little bit later. Stay tuned with this because there is a king of this who has changed how I approach painting who I want to give some props to later.
I like it.
Give props to. Well, 1990s just called Jenkins. Last but not least on this list is one you put on here, which I'm too scared to try, but it fascinates me.
Well, is it the airbrush? Is it
sponges?
Oh, the sponges. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. So I've got some there. If I'm honest, I've got some. I've not tried them, but looking online, it seems really easy. Like and I haven't tried it because I paint on my neck once, to be fair. But I'm scared. I'm scared because how easy it looks.
Yes, so it looks too good to be true, doesn't it?
Exactly, which is why I'm kind of almost put off by it. But basically, for the sponges, like what these ones are just there, all it is you literally just put a bit of paint on your palette, get the brush, dab it in, and then obviously take off lots and lots of paint, and then you just ba 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 ba. And it just makes it look like, not so much rusted, but like it looks like the paint is like chipping off. So you basically apply the sponge on like, I guess you finished base coat model because then it adds some of like the weathered effect.
I've seen it done in like a really small piece or like peeled off from like an old kitchen sponge or something.
Yes.
A clean one. Go and watch part one for that story.
Yes.
And then I've seen like people put them in tweezers and then fix them with bulldog clips or whatever.
Yeah.
And then and you just put in like it giving that weathered effect on armor panels on the sides of tanks and stuff. It looks really good.
See, I want to try it with my knights, but I've just sprayed my knights. So if I do it, I get it wrong. I've got to then respray, and I can't be bothered.
Have you seen that? Have you seen the videos where people like sponge paint marines from like, I don't mean like weathering, I mean the full marine is sponge painted.
No way.
This I was like, what is this witchcraft?
Yeah, like
so this, I'm not kidding you. So in part one we were talking about how you watch some of these tutorials and the video might be 30 minutes long, but it takes you 2 hours to do what they do.
Yes.
Because of course they're going to skip the boring bits.
Yeah, of course.
But I was literally, this was like in real time, and this guy goes, today I'm going to paint a marine with a sponge. Gets a bit of sponge, gets some dark blue, like same thing, like kind of takes quite a lot of the paint off, and just goes bap 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 all over this marine, and it picked up all of the panels and edges and none of the recesses again. So it was a bit
because it's just like
it's like an overbrush or a heavy dry brush, but it was a lot quicker. You know, in 30 seconds he's done the entire model, and then he goes, we'll leave that to dry, and then he just gets a lighter blue, does the same again, and you're like, but you know, even less paint, and you're just like, my God, it's nearly done. So I would really like to give that a go as well, but I'm just, you know, I need to master the techniques I already know before I start.
Again, it's funny when people sit there, because I mean, I say it myself, like, oh, I've got so much to paint, it's going to take us ages. And there's some bloke out there with a sponge being like,
Yeah,
I'm done.
I'm done.
It's like, no,
a
man, no.
marina minute, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and then all you've got to do is like paint the guns and the
Bit of silver,
armor edges and things like that.
more
Yeah.
contrast.
I mean, if you were trying to get Marines battle ready, the sponge technique sounds amazing.
It's incredible. Yeah.
But
I'm jealous.
yes,
I'm jealous.
so that's the only one I haven't really tried. Have we got anything else on the list that we haven't talked about?
No, I think that's kind of all the ones really. We briefly mentioned about the airbrush. I mean, if someone hasn't got it, like, it's really good. It is a very useful tool. I will say you don't need it when you first start out. It's something that's really useful later on when you try and get certain effects. Like I'm going for, we briefly mentioned just there, but I'm going for an effect where it's like a light to dark kind of shade.
It looks good.
And yeah, it's looking good. I'll put some pictures on screen so you can see it on how bad my painting is. But basically, I'm going for the effect where it's like going from light to dark. And it's really hard with a brush. Now, you mentioned I think stippling, that might do that for us. I might try that in the future, but I kind of want to lean more towards getting more used to using the airbrush.
Yeah,
personally.
I've got to say I'm the opposite. So I spaffed 150 quid on an airbrush and a compressor.
Yeah,
because you need a compressor to compress the air for the airbrush.
Yes.
And I've not been able to really get it to work. And again, in terms of, I'm quite time poor for hobbying, so I need things that work, and I'm impatient. I need things that work quick. So I
want it done now.
Yeah, I'm holding on to it, but I'm going to try this stippling, and if that works, then and I get something similar to what you were talking about in terms of those color grades, then I'm just going to
sell it on the next podcast.
Yeah.
Come back and be like, "Oh, painting part 3. It's us selling our gear."
It'll be the next giveaway. Yeah, 1,000 subs, win Dan's airbrush and compressor,
signed by Dan. Signature edition.
That would reduce the value. Can you not sign it, please? Yeah.
I love it. Perfect. Well, I think that's all the kind of painting techniques, isn't there?
Yeah, and which ones would you, if you were somebody that was coming into the hobby and has learned some of the basics or is interested in the best techniques to get results quickly, which ones would you recommend, do you think?
You know what? It's just got to be the Citadel paint range first of all, and then followed by that just the contrast paints. Contrast paints alongside basically just and whacking them on.
And technique wise, in terms of like you would recommend airbrushing, as you just said. Is there anything else?
Yes. Dry brushing primarily. It's just it's easy. It doesn't take too much. The only thing that I would say with dry brushing is if your finger got too much paint on, get rid of it.
Yes,
because you can build on top of the paint. You can't remove the paint.
That was my biggest fail when I started. Or the other one is just simply losing concentration and forgetting to wipe the paint off, and you just go
and it's ruined. You're like, oh my god, like, I'm sick.
Yeah,
but yeah, they'll be my two big things. What about you? You want to do any of the?
As I mentioned, the slap chop technique is really good, and I want to talk about. We'll talk a little bit more about overbrushing when we get into brushes as well.
Oh, fancy! Well, why don't we get into that now? Right.
Okay. Yes.
So basically, would we ever buy expensive palettes and brushes? What are your initial thoughts?
I'm not sure about a palette, although again, go and watch part 1 about how badly I fared on making my own wet palette. Yeah. One of the things I am going to invest in is some, even though we've just talked about this, but is some really expensive brushes, is specific to a brand called Artis Opus. And the reason for this, though, is these have been out for a while, and you see them all over Instagram and stuff. And I think you and me are a bit the same in this. We're quite contrarian. Like if I see something everybody's doing, I'm like, well, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I am. I'm just like, I refuse.
Yeah,
I hate it.
And to start with as well, when I was getting back into painting, I didn't want to spend too much money because I didn't know how far I was going to take how addicted to Warhammer I was going to get this time around. Yeah. But the reason I'm going to invest in some Artis Opus brushes is because of the difference that watching their YouTube channel has made to my painting.
Oh, right, okay.
So the guy who came up with Artis Opus brushes is called Byron. He's a fantastic painter, a fantastic instructor. His videos are really, really easy to follow.
Good.
But he is very much focused on how you can get excellent results from using basically dry brushes. So that kind of overbrushing technique that we used before. He's the absolute king of stippling as far as I'm concerned. He's very good.
It sounds really hard when you're describing how to do it. Like
I've seen it. Well, that's it. Because I'm like, I'm not sure about this. And then he's got some videos of like how to paint a rhino, a Space Marines rhino, and the stippling on the panels, just like the same sort of thing. So it goes from dark at the edges to a bit lighter in the middle, and it just looks lovely. And he's done it in again, it's almost in real time, and it's literally in about 5 minutes.
I get so jealous when I see that sort of stuff because I'm just like, I mean, obviously, of course, you've got the experience under the belt and obviously the best knowledge about it. But whenever I do it, it just looks a mess. I'm like, oh.
He's got a wicked sense of humour as well. So videos are funny and fun to watch, but but they're free, obviously. So
of course.
I'm going to buy the brushes almost as like a thank you to say thanks for,
a bit of support kind of thing.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Not that he needs the money, I'm sure he's a very successful man.
I was going to say,
but from a personal perspective, you want to say thank you to somebody.
How much do those brushes start from? Because I had a brief look.
Yeah, you had a look, didn't you?
It was a brief one. It was like, from what I see, obviously it does vary from out there and such. And of course, they're going to be great brushes. But from what I looked at, they were about 170. You can get ones for 170.
The Artist Opus sets,
yes, they are.
And I mean,
pricey.
it is a quality kind of experience. They come in like a little wooden box, I think, and stuff, don't they? And
and they're going to last as well.
They're going to last, yes.
At the end of the day, because we were talking about before, you could go through some cheap brushes relatively fast, but you could get one good brush and it'll last you a very good.
Well, this is the thing, if anybody knows out there, let us know. So because if you imagine, even if they cost 170 quid, right? If they last you 5 years. If another set was going to cost you 40 quid and last a year, then you're going to still save money.
Exactly.
And I get to wander around saying, look at me. I'm a painting hipster now, baby.
Like, you walk up to someone and be like, how did you paint that? well,
let me tell you.
And of course, the more expensive the paintbrushes, the better painter you're going to become.
Well, if I don't see a market difference, I'm going to ask Byron for my money back. I'll be knocking on his door.
Yeah, exactly. But I think for me, relatively the same. To be fair, palettes, I'm probably not going to buy an expensive palette. I've got this really nice thing that I bought from Amazon, where it's literally just. It's like a book basically, but each page was basically the little palette.
Oh yeah.
So basically, you just obviously use the palette, and then once the palette's full, you rip off that page,
just tear it, and
just throw it in the bin. Yeah, it just means that you don't have to clean up. Because I hate having palettes now that I know you should, but I don't clean my palettes as soon as I'm done. So it's probably my fault as well. But I just can't bother to fix it. To clean them straight away. Exactly. So I'll leave them. And when you come back to painting, you're like, God damn it, I didn't.
I saw somebody painting on it. They had have you seen those dry brushing palettes where they're textured so you can test your dry brushing out first and that? And he had one of those and he's like, I should probably clean this. And it must have had like 5 mil of paint on it. It's like you could barely see the detail anymore. Maybe it was time to sort that one out.
It's good. That's good. But yes, no, I won't be buying any expensive palettes. Don't need them. Don't want them. Brushes though, I'm going to stick to the 20 quid mark for me at the minute. I like that. Now, that's 20 quid for like a set because I do like the, I mentioned on here as well, it was the Army Painter. You've got the really nice sets.
Good brushes.
Good brushes. I like them. A good price as well. I typically buy those ones just because, again, they're in my price range. They're good products, good reviews, and I just overall do like them at the minute. They are nice.
And I think part of this is, again, we're talking about this from our personal experiences, but for me, it definitely, you need to find a brush that feels right in your hand. And if that doesn't sound too naff, and different brushes do feel different and work different in your hands.
Definitely do.
So if Army Painter works, then, why not?
Bang on. Yeah. I think when I go for the Golden Demon Award in the future, I might splash out, but that's far, far in the future.
Cool.
Anything else on those you want to talk about? Any expensive brushes or palettes?
No, I mean, I talked a little bit about airbrushes already and how much that cost me. But you think, I mean, you want to talk a bit more about airbrushes because you're very much in the pro camp, aren't you?
Yeah, I am because I think they're really good. But I think it's probably worth mentioning is that the airbrush is like a two-parter because you could go online and you could see an airbrush and you'd be like, oh, this airbrush is like 80 quid. This looks great. It'll be a good airbrush. But don't forget, you need the compressor. And the compressor is just as important as the airbrush because you need good, consistent airflow and high or good pressure. If you don't have good pressure from those cheap Amazon 20 quid compressors, it'll overheat, it'll not give you the air that you expect, and you'll not be the one I've got, it's quite a beast, but it allows you to choose the pressure that you want. So depending on what type of paint you're using or what kind of effect you're going for, you might want to reduce the pressure that it's releasing to allow that, and cheap compressors don't allow that.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah.
In my one I've got as well, it was like 60 quid I paid for my compressor, or maybe 80 quid. But the reason why I got it for was because one of the nice features is that it gets the air in and it gets up to the point where it needs it to be, and it turns itself off. and it keeps that pressure for a while. And then when it needs to restock itself, it then turns it on.
Does it automatically come back on?
Yep.
I'm not sure if mine does, but I don't think I've ever used it for long enough to find out.
So that's another thing. If you get one of those cheap ones, it's just on. Yeah. It's just building and building.
Yeah, they can be quite noisy.
Yes, they are.
I was surprised how noisy mine was when the tank. Mine's the same as yours in that if the tank fills up and then it stops, the motor stops going basically once it's pressurized the air. Yep. But while it's filling the tank, it's quite noisy.
It is quite noisy, yeah. So look, they are good. I do recommend them, but you don't need an expensive airbrush. I'd say spend more on your compressor than you would get airbrush.
Definitely when you're getting started, I think yes. And but equally try and be careful. Like you can get airbrushes for I don't know 10 or 15 quid. And
they'll do.
That when you're getting if you're getting started, you just want to learn techniques about putting blocks of color down, like you were talking about in the last video, covering terrain or something.
Yes,
a cheap airbrush is fine for that kind of stuff.
I started just doing mine on terrain just to get used to the airbrush, how it works, how to use it, and such, and like kind of how to fix it when it breaks. So definitely start with terrain that you really just don't care about, and then focus on your models. Don't go directly to models because you'll use it and you'll get disheartened because you'll not have the effect that you want.
Yeah. Very good points, mate.
Yes.
Thank you.
Love it. But this other topic that we're going to talk about is how to strip your paint. I'm really interested in this because I don't strip the paint off my models, or I don't buy eBay rescues that require me to strip them.
I'm tight, so I buy a lot of secondhand stuff. Particularly when I get obsessed with the new army, I want everything as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So I can't afford it new. So I do tend to look for bargains. And but sometimes the paint on them is awful. You can't just paint over it. You've got to start again. Mm-hmm. So the best way to do that is. Probably there's two ways really. The main one and the cheapest one, I guess, is isopropyl alcohol.
Right.
Now, you can go and ask for that from but basically it's like paint stripper. But the one I would recommend is Dettol. You want the higher percentage of alcohol, the better. But something like household Dettol will do the job.
So what, you just literally just dunk it in and then leave it for how long?
I would definitely usually give it a couple of hours, and then use an old toothbrush, or if you're falling out with your partner, use their toothbrush. Use it, and give it a scrub. And if the paint doesn't come off, then you just put it back in and leave it a bit longer. But it will ultimately come off, and that's I wouldn't put it in a plastic tub. I would usually put it in a glass container, so like an old jam jar or something, to do it that way. Because some of these things can eat through plastic. So
right. So which one do you use for plastic? Which one do you use for metal?
So plastic, I would use Dettol. I think it's called Simply Green in the USA for our growing American audience.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called in Estonia. Shout out to Estonia because we're one of the top hobby podcasts.
Yeah, we
Estonia. Thank you, Estonia.
I appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely.
So that one is the common, that's like the household one, if you like, because usually somebody in most households you'll have some Dettol or something similar like that. Sure. The official kind of gold standard is BioStrip, which is a relatively new product, and it's specifically kind of designed for stripping stuff off.
Oh, okay, right.
So it's like it comes in a big tub, and it looks like how can I say this? It looks like acidic jizz.
I like how you thought about it. You're like, how can I say this?
Yeah.
I'm just going to say it.
I'm just going to say it, yeah.
I respect it. I like it.
Yeah, I asked the filter to kick in, and it didn't.
I love it.
But this stuff is it works in a similar way. So you dunk your model in there and leave it, and then you just you just kind of get some water and a toothbrush and just brush it off, and that's meant to as little as like 30 minutes or whatever can work with that. And I like it. We're talking again about plastic models here. Resin. Don't leave resin models to soak in isopropyl alcohol as long. Maybe it's 15-20 minutes max.
Really?
Yeah, because the resin, depending on the resin, it will start to deform.
Right.
Yeah. And the one to definitely not use is nail varnish remover, I think, isn't it, Jack?
Yeah, unfortunately it is. It is. That's the only experience I've had with doing just stripping paint off it. To be fair, I should have looked more into it. It was one of those things where I had an old model and I was like, oh, I need to get this paint off. And I just literally quick Google search and it was like nail varnish. I didn't even look anymore. It was like the first Google search was like, oh yeah, nail varnish. And I was like, grab the nail varnish.
Well, again, it's something that you've got to hand in most houses, isn't it? So nail varnish remover, but what happened?
It just made an absolute mess. Like the paint, just the plastic melted.
It melted.
It was just awful, and the paint didn't even come off. It just melted the plastic, and then like half the model still had the paint on, half the model was just deformed. And I was like, oh, that sucks.
I was saying to you before, I've got this image of it like the guy from the 80s Robocop movie when he gets hit with the toxic waste. He's like, ooh.
It's just awful.
But interestingly, and the reason that you found that when you Googled it is it's probably the best for getting paint off metal minis. That's what we, in the old days, that's what we used to back in my day, that's what we used to use on metal minis because it works a treat, but it just eats plastic and resin. You can't do it.
Probably was, yeah. But I literally just don't do that. It absolutely failed. And I think since then I was just like, you know what, this is just too much work and too much effort. And I get the price would be absolutely great on eBay to get those models, but at the same time I was like, I can't bother. It's just extra work and not for me.
No. And what I think while we're talking about all of these chemicals and stuff, it is important to mention safety.
Yeah, it is. To be fair.
I mean, a lot of these things have got solvents in them or chemicals that you don't.
I read this when I was looking at it. I was laughing. I was like, I didn't do any of this. No. I was like, gloves? No, I remember just putting my hand straight in. Yeah. Just like, get this, get that. Not good for me.
I think when you're a kid, you just want to get on with it.
Oh, this was last week.
Oh,
no. But yes, you're right. Safety is important. And what, like goggles, gloves, mask, all sorts of
things. Using spray cans, using alcohols and solvents, BioStrip, any of that stuff. That you should definitely wear gloves. Disposable gloves are your best friend.
Read the label.
Yeah, definitely read the label.
Flammable as well.
Yeah. If you're spraying anything like this, or if you're using solvents for oil washes or stripping minis or whatever, well ventilated area.
Go outside is what I do for mine.
Outside is best. Yeah, outside is best.
My airbrush, I've got obviously the little mask, the goggles, gloves, have a window open. I've got an air purifier in my room as well, just in case.
Airbrush. I'm more comfortable using indoors. But rattle cans definitely don't use them indoors.
They are absolutely full of it.
I mean,
full of the good stuff.
When we first started painting metal minis, it was a range of like paints that were made for Airfix models, and there were enamels or oil paints, and so you had to use alcohol to thin them or to clean your brushes as well. And so we'd be sat there with these open container, like with a jar full of like methylated spirits on there or something, and after 30 minutes you were like, because we didn't know to open the window.
No, you wouldn't.
We mate Aaron would be like, I've got a bit of a headache. I'm like, shut up, we haven't finished painting yet.
We've still got loads more to paint.
He just falls off the chair.
Or just go back to the Mad Max. Witness me.
Yeah.
Definitely don't do that. Definitely don't do that. And I love it.
You also, it's not painting, but you surprised me with a story about clippers as well.
Oh, it was awful, man. So it's slightly different from we should do another one about building as well. There's the safety of building, but oh god, I remember I was younger. I was literally just minding my own business, and I've been probably building Warhammer at this point for maybe a couple of years, so nothing had happened, but I was just sitting away, clipping away my models, making sure I was just getting all the right parts.
Yeah.
And honestly, I remember it just clipping it, and I could see it go from the plastic sprue, boom, straight in my eye, and it just hit me. And the panic, I must have threw my model through the box. I must have kicked my feet down, kicked the floor, and I just jumped up and I was like, it's in my effing eye. I was like, I can't get it out. And I was like, it was awful because I could feel it below my lid.
Oh no.
And I was just like, I'm gonna die. This is it. And I was like, I used to, I don't like touching my eye. And I don't like getting in there. But hey, when plastic was in there, I was getting
straight in there, yeah.
Eyelid was right out, finger below the eyelid. I was like, get out! And I was like, no. So that, oh god, when that happened, that was awful.
Scary stuff, man.
Awful.
So wear safety specs as well if you've got them. I know it all sounds a bit over the top, but it's important stuff.
Yeah, it is. Oh, actually, the only painting I actually remember now, the only painting, injury that I've had. when I was doing my painting models, I had a really bad chest in the middle. I don't know if you remember that story I've told you before.
No.
Basically, in the middle of my chest, I woke up in the middle of the night and I had this massive pain in my chest.
Oh yes.
And I was like, what's that? I was like, oh my god, it's quite deep. I was like, what's going on? I was like, you think the worst. I'm like, I'm having like a heart attack or something like that, and I'm having like something wrong with my chest. So I was sitting at the end of my bed, and I remember leaning up, and it just from the top to the bottom, really deep. Massive pain, and I was like sitting at the bottom of the bed. I was like, I'm not ringing 111. 909. I was like, I'm not ringing that. I was like, I'll Google it. Okay, I should ring 909. I was like, maybe I'm okay. Maybe it's not something else. So I looked around, woke up my girlfriend. I was like, hey, I've got a really bad chest. I don't know what to do. I'm a bit panicky here. She literally just leans over and goes, it's 2:00 in the morning. Just see what you like tomorrow. I'll sit there. I'm like, I might not be here. Just let me know, please. And then she goes back to bed. So I'm sitting there for another half an hour, and I was just sitting there. I was like, well, if it was going to happen, it would have happened.
Right.
So I was like, that was like the reassurance I was giving myself. So anyways, next day I woke up, phoned my sister, who's a nurse. She was like, you're an idiot. You should have phoned. Don't do that again. Go to the GP now. So I went to the GP, and it turns out that I'd actually just been painting like this.
Oh, you were hunched up.
I was hunched up, painting over my sofa like that. So what happened is I'd just hurt my muscles.
You've knocked all your muscles.
And I was just like, oh my God, that's so embarrassing. Like
I do remember that, yes.
I'm not a well physique man, but just to say that my muscles were hurting here was bad.
I'm going to die.
Well, yeah. Well, like the person was like, "Oh, do you work out?" And I was laughing. I was like, "Do I work out?" I was like, "I paint Warhammer." And she was like, "How do you paint?" And I was like this, and she was like, "Well, there you go." I was like, "Oh, okay, fair enough." So that was my biggest injury that I've had painting. Not fun, not good.
No, good posture is very important when you're painting.
Don't do me. Ring 999 if you need to, please.
Pains, and apart from medical help, where can we get help with painting?
With painting, yes. So anything painting related, unless it's physical, if it's painting related, for me, I just enjoyed going to the store.
This is a big tick in the box for the Warhammer store, isn't it?
They've definitely improved, and they've always been good when it comes to the painting side of things. I think the selling aspect is getting better, but the painting element has always been really helpful. Yeah. Like I go in and they're like, obviously they always, one of the first questions like, what's your project that you're working on? Which I get why they're asked, but for me, I was literally went in, I was like, oh, this is my project. I do have genuine questions about painting, and they were very helpful. They were like, "Oh, that's really good. This will do the job for what you're looking for." And I was saying, "Oh, I want like a dark purple. Like, what kind of one should I go for?" This is when I was painting my knights, and they were like, "Oh, well, look, you want kind of these are the three colors that would go with in terms of like the shading element that I'm looking for." Yeah. But they also said, "Well, look, why don't you check out the app?" So I went on the Citadel app that I was talking about before, and they were showing us how to use it, how to basically create your own, because you can go in there and you can set up your favorite paints, but you can set up projects as well. And when you set up your projects, you're like, all right, I'm going to paint the knight, and you go through the list of knights and the knight houses, and it lets you pick the knight houses, and then that recommends the colors for you. Right. So you know on the back of the boxes that you've got, how people just use the box art to paint their models, and on the back of the box it's got the paints that you need to use. Well, it's the same for the app, but in different paint schemes.
Really cool.
Really useful to use. So I now use that when I'm looking to see what kind of paints I want to mix together and get that little edge highlight that I'm looking for. So really recommend using that myself.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. What about you?
Local gaming clubs and stores. As our local club, the West Allotment Wildlings, is, their Discord has been great for me. There's some really, really good pages in there, and they're all very happy and to share advice and experience, which is really helpful. Yeah. So you can go on there and say like, take a picture of your model, and there's no, even though they're very good painters across the club, there's lots of, there's a full spectrum of standards of painting. Of course. Yeah. So I feel comfortable going on there and saying, right, I've done this. How do I make it better, or how do I fix this? Yeah. And that's been a really good resource for me.
That's good. I think it is good, like even at tournaments as well, just like going up to people who are like, I was doing my nights and I was like, how did you do this? And they were like, oh, just a big dunk of oil, just whacked it in. And it was interesting to see how they painted their nights compared to how I was going to approach it myself. Yeah. I didn't go with that technique because they needed like a literal bucket of null oil. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that. But he was doing laps. He said he had like 20 plus nights to do it. So a dunk was going to be the better method for him.
Yeah, dunk and dip, and that's an on you go. That's different techniques for different volumes of what you're trying to paint is important, isn't it?
Exactly right.
And Instagram as well. I know this is still a touchy subject for both of us. But,
yes.
This also can be very useful, can't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. If you go on to the way I found that you get help on Instagram is look. Upcoming Instagram people who are posting and such on there, they want engagement. Yes. So 80% of the time, people are going to basically be replying to you. I had a little gift there. 80% of the time, they will reply to you 100% of the time. Yeah. But yeah, honestly, if you go on Instagram and just like find some people who are painting the same models you are, if you put a comment on there, they are most likely going to reply to you because it helps them, it helps you, and it's just overall.
Most of them are nice people, aren't they?
Yeah. Most of them, because people hacked me. but again, still touchy about that. But yes, what about yourself? Anything else?
No, nothing there. I'm interested to know in terms of beyond like talking to people that we know or people on Instagram, is there any painters that you recommend as like YouTube guides, those kind of people?
Well, we mentioned him before, but Duncan Rhodes, he creeps up all over the place.
He's got a very good way of explaining stuff as well, hasn't he?
He's so easy. Yeah. It's so easy to watch and read and such like that. And I love his YouTube videos that he does now. And even the old ones, I went to go paint I was looking at starting my Baneblade. I've not started yet. I've undercoated white, not started yet. But, again, it was a video from like 10 years ago, and he's like, "This is what you do," and I watched the video, and I was like, "Hey, it still holds up today. Like that paint scheme looks unreal." Yeah. So I'll still be doing that.
I love his voice. He's a bit like Bob, the Bob Ross of
Bob Ross. Yeah,
nice
I can
kind
see
of
that.
gentle, kind voice, and I find it very soothing.
Definitely.
Oh, Duncan.
But gets you to sleep at night. Yeah. Like, Duncan. No oil. But apart from that, I feel really bad because there was actually a lot of people that I spoke to on Instagram when I was upcoming and doing my Instagram posts. I've lost all their names. Obviously, it's all on my Instagram, which has been lost. So there's I just can't recommend enough. Go on Instagram, search the model that you're painting currently or need help with, and there'll be definitely painters out there who will help out for sure.
Yeah.
What about yourself? I know you mentioned a couple before.
Byron, I mentioned from Artist Opus before, who's a painting hero of mine. There's another one that I really like is Brushstroke Painting Guide. Those are very, very easy tutorials to follow as well for good results. Yeah, definitely recommend checking that out. And the last one, when I've been talking about different brushes and stuff, is makeup brushes. Which, so this changed my life as well for painting Necrons. We're talking about the overbrush style where you can get a lot of colour on Necrons quite quickly. This is a guy called Zorp. He's world famous now. He was pretty big even back then when I first discovered this, but he has a series of videos on painting Necrons with this overbrushing technique, but using makeup brushes. So these are brushes that you can get for like £1 each from any sort of like pound store, like those kind of people, the dollar store if you're in America, those kind of places. You can get them on Amazon, and they look quite similar to dry brushes, but just a lot cheaper. Good. And just a really cheap and easy way to cover. And it just blew me away. I was like, wow, that's incredible. Yeah. Because again, it's one of those real time things where he's just gone like, right, so I've got my Rune Lord Brass here, and I've got my makeup brush. I get most of the paint off here, and he was using like a really massive makeup brush and just went. And then he's like, just leave that to dry, and then we'll do another coat. Because sometimes the overbrushing metallics, you don't quite get the full depth of the colour.
That's true.
But it's like we're talking about with the sponge. It's so quick.
It's crazy how people just like find these little techniques, and they're like, they're just like staying off in the distance, and they're like, there's a pillow there. Yeah. I could use that pillow to paint. Big pillow painting. Oh man.
So that was I found those guys all really, really helpful. Zorp also he's a mad genius, but he built an entire, I think it was Helm's Deep. He's really into Middle Earth.
That's pretty cool.
Rings, but he's built some incredible stuff for Lord of the Rings.
Probably have all the links in the description below then for everyone.
I'll whack some links onto all of those the channels, but they're definitely worth a look.
I love it.
You touched on Instagram before and about the community. Does it because with a lot of stuff on Instagram, you can take it one of two ways, can't you? It can either inspire you or it can kind of make you feel I'm not good enough.
Yes. I think luckily for me, I hadn't had Instagram. So when I was first getting my Instagram, I was going in for the sole purpose of getting inspiration.
Yes.
So I was like, right, I'm going on there to find out how to do this, how to do that. Then as I started using it, I was like, oh, you know what? I found a couple of accounts that were just like, oh, my progress report. And I was like, oh, that's actually a pretty good way of doing it. And like just kind of keeping track of models you've painted, models you've done, models you're looking to do in the future. And I think it was just a nice progression to see, because I used to open up their accounts, scroll to their very first post and being like, wow, that's bad. And then you scroll up to the top and be like, that's really good. It's like, well, look, it all just takes time. Yes. Every little paint that you do, every model that you paint, you learn new techniques every single time. So it's a marathon, not a race.
Yes.
Enjoy it. And I think that's probably one of the things I take away.
I think so, and I'm trying. I saw a post from someone I follow the other day who's been saying he's a good painter as well, and he was saying he'd been looking at Golden Demon entries on Instagram and saying that it kind of demotivated him because he didn't feel like he could ever be that good.
Yeah, now, don't jump straight at Golden Demon.
No, well there is that, but also what you've just said there is how I try and view it: is don't compare yourself to them, compare yourself to you. Yeah, like is what you do today better than what you did yesterday or a month ago or 6 months ago, and it will be. You know.
Do. Yeah, and you'll get to a point where I finished most of my. I think I painted like 80 Necron Warriors. Yeah, and I finished them all, and I started painting my Immortals, and I found a much better way of doing the silver, and I was like, Oh, I was like, damn. I was like,
Yeah.
I would have saved so much time. But then I started painting my Lich Guard, and I found a really nice way of doing an edge highlight. And I was like, oh, I wish I'd done that for my warriors, because that would have looked so much better than what I've done. And I'm kind of like, do I go back and redo my old models? Which you certainly can. But that's a lot of models to go back and do.
Yeah, it is. And I think sometimes you just have to accept, it sounds cheesy, but you just have to accept it's part of the journey of becoming a better painter, isn't it?
Exactly.
You can't beat yourself. You can't beat Jack up from 2015 because he couldn't paint as well as Jack today, can you?
Exactly. I'll certainly try, but I definitely can't. But yes, no, it's really good.
Good. And speaking of Golden Demon.
Yes.
This is, do you want to give us a brief overview for those that don't know?
Absolutely. Basically, Golden Demon is a competition that is basically for miniature and modeling. It's basically ran by Games Workshop. And I think it's really important that it's not just the models themselves, but it's the modeling aspect of it. Because when we were there, we were at Warhammer Fest back in
last year.
Last year, was it? There was some great models there, and they weren't just the models by themselves, but there was like a
almost like mini diorama type thing.
Yeah, that's the word.
Yeah.
One of my favorites that I've seen there, I'll put a picture on screen, was the it must have been the what's the game that they're called? It's the when the orcs and they're playing the football.
Blood Bowl.
Yes, that's the one.
Blood Bowl.
There's a really funny one with the referee telling the orc player that he can't do that. And then off in the distance, there's a guy basically lying on the floor. Not looking so good. Which is just, it's really funny to see, and I love seeing those.
Blood Bowl is one of the corners of Games Workshop that still kept a lot of the old kind of humour. And that diorama really captured that as well. It was very, it was beautiful. It was really well done.
Really well done.
I mean, and some of the paintings you see there is incredible. It's like it's a global competition now, and you get people entering from all over the world.
Yeah.
This year was the first time the finals weren't in the UK. I think the models were on display in the States, weren't they? It might have been two legs actually. I think they were in the States and some were in Europe. I think it was. But that's good. It's a global competition. It should move around. We can't have everything. We can't have all the nice things in the UK.
No, well, it would be nice, but no, of course we can't.
And is it? Now we've been talking about painting and the journey of getting better. Is it something that you think you would ever do?
I think, as of right now, no. I certainly would not. As a little funny thing we should do for our channel, I think that would be pretty fun for us to maybe enter in the future.
Yeah, I think I've seen last at Warhammer Fest, they invited a bunch of content creators down to it to like do that and enter Golden Demon. But it's I'm light years away from being there. It would be, we would need like a. It would need to be like a different colour, like shit brown demon or something like that. I could enter that. That competition.
Oh man!
But
I mean, people spend months on ends doing this. Countless hours spending fine tuning their details. On the model.
Some people start paint have already. So Golden Demon's not long just been like judged. So obviously you need to get your model ready a couple of months before that. But it's some people are having at least a year run up.
Yeah.
So there's people that have already started on their 2025 entries for Golden Demon.
That's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, you can see why though. Like looking at some of these models that we've got, you can see the effort and time put into these models. It's unreal. It's really good.
Yeah, they're beautiful. We're gonna. You found picked out some of your favourites, including there's a fantastic old school Necron in there.
It's so good.
It's painted so well. Isn't it?
So well because I mean, if you think back, those models back in the day, they weren't easy to paint and easy to see. And I think, because again, looking at they've definitely cleaned up that model a lot. The eyes and the face. I've got some other ones over there that are just like the metal molds that came out. It's just deformed.
Yeah, they were a little bit misshapen very often when they come out of the cast. Yeah,
exactly. So he's definitely made some improvements to that one. And it looks
yes.
Really well
so
done.
Check that out, and I think that pretty much covers it.
Sums it up there. Yeah. So by now, everyone who's watching this should be an expert at painting. So
and if you've watched this or listened to this while you've been painting, you're probably already a better painter anyway.
So well done to you.
Yeah, well done you.
Absolutely.
But thank you very much for joining us. Let us, as always, we've got some great comments. Thank you to everybody that commented on the part one of this video.
Yeah.
If you've got more things that you'd like to tell us about, let us know about your experiences with painting and whatnot. Please put it in the comments, and let's keep having that conversation.
Thanks so much.